Lily sat at the small, wobbly table in the corner of the cafe. Copyright, her fingers nervously twisting the frayed hem of her thrift store sweater. The air was thick with the rich aroma of roasted coffee beans, mingling with the faint hum of indie music playing through the speakers. She glanced at her reflection in the window while her chestnut hair pulled into a messy bun, her hazel eyes wide with uncertainty. This was her first blind date in months, and she'd spent the morning convincing herself not to cancel. Ethan, the man she'd matched with online, was a single dad and CEO of some tech company she'd never heard of. His profile had been a mix of polished charm and candid warmth, with the photo of him laughing alongside a gap-toothed little girl. Too good to be true, she'd thought, but curious so yeah, and a flicker of hope he had pushed her to show up. The bell above the door jingled, and there he was. Ethan strode in, his navy suit tailored to perfection, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd run a hand through it moments ago. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on her with a spark of recognition. Lily's stomach flipped. She felt painfully out of place in her faded dress and scuffed flats, her entire outfit costing less than the watch glinting on his wrist. He approached with an easy smile, sliding into the chair across from her. "Lily, right? I'm Ethan. Nice to finally meet you." His voice was warm, disarming, but her nerves didn't settle. They exchanged small talk of weather, traffic, the cafe. Copyright quirky decor. But when the barista called out for their order, Lily froze. Her wallet held exactly $7, enough for a bus ride home but not much else. She'd hoped to skip ordering, to play it off as not being thirsty, but Ethan raised an eyebrow, waiting. Her cheeks burned as the truth tumbled out. "I can't afford coffee," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hung between them, raw and exposed. She braced for pity, or worse, a polite excuse for him to leave. But Ethan didn't flinch. His eyes, a deep green flecked with gold, softened. He leaned back, his posture relaxed, and raised a hand to signal the barista. "2 coffees, please," he said, his voice steady. Then he turned to her, a small, genuine smile tugging at his lips. "My treat." Lily's breath caught. Was this kindness, pity, or something she couldn't yet name? The barista set down 2 steaming mugs, and the moment passed, but that smile lingered in her mind, a quiet promise that this wasn't what she'd feared. "Tell me about you," Ethan said, leaning forward, his elbows resting on the table. There was no trace of judgment in his tone, just a curiosity that felt a broken bar real. Lily hesitated, her fingers wrapping around the warm mug. She wasn't used to being asked about herself, and not like this. At the diner where she worked late-night shifts, customers barely looked up from their plates. But Ethan's gaze was steady, encouraging. So she started, haltingly at first, then with more ease. She told him about the sketches she drew on napkins during slow hours, capturing the faces of strangers, tired truckers, lonely regulars, kids smearing ketchup on their cheeks. She mentioned her dream of studying art, a dream buried under bills and long hours. She even admitted how she'd almost canceled tonight, convinced a man like him wouldn't see past her empty bank account. Ethan listened, his phone face down, untouched. When she paused, he didn't fill the silence with platitudes. Instead, he shared his own story. He talked about Mia, his 6-year-old daughter who loved glitter and insisted dinosaurs were still alive somewhere. He described the chaos of running a tech firm, the late nights coding in his early days, and the quieter ache of raising Mia alone since his wife walked out 3 years ago. "It's just us now," he said, his voice softening. "And it's enough, but sometime as a broken bar it's lonely." Lily nodded, recognizing that ache in herself, though her life looked nothing like his. The cafe copyright lights dimmed as closing time neared, casting a warm glow over the wooden tables. Neither of them noticed the hours slipping by. When the barista politely shooed them out, they stepped into the crisp autumn air, leaves crunching underfoot. Ethan paused on the sidewalk, his hands in his pockets. "I'd like to see you again," he said, his voice steady but laced with something vulnerable, hopeful. Lily clutched her sketchbook to her chest, her heart racing. She'd come expecting disappointment, but instead, she felt seen. "I'd like that," she said, her smile small but real. As he walked away, She wondered if this was where her story began to shift. A week later, Lily returned to the same cafe. Copyright, her sketchbook open on the table. She'd spent the morning sketching Ethan's face from memory, of the way his smile tilted slightly to the left, the crinkle at the corners of his eyes when he laughed. She'd replayed their date in her mind all week, dissecting every word, every glance. He was a CEO, for God's sake, a private jets and boardrooms, a world she couldn't touch. She was a waitress who counted quarters for laundry. The gap between them felt like a chasm, but his texts had been steady, warm, asking about her day, sharing stories of Mia's latest obsession with painting her dog's nails blue. When he'd suggested meeting again, she'd said yes before her doubts could stop her. The bell jingled, and Ethan appeared, this time in a sweater and jeans, less CEO and more a broken bar human. He carried a small paper bag, which he set on the table with a shy grin. "For you," he said, sliding it toward her. Lily opened it, her breath catching. Inside was a sketch pad, the kind she'd only ever admired in art store windows, its pages thick and creamy, perfect for charcoal. Next to it was a set of pencils, the kind she'd never justify buying. "I saw you light up when you talked about your art," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I thought you might like these." Her throat tightened. No one had ever done something like this for her, and not her parents, who'd called her art a nice hobby before pushing her toward practical jobs, nor her ex, who'd mocked her sketches as childish. "Ethan, this ice a broken bar too much," she managed, but he shook his head. "It's not. You deserve to create." His voice was firm, like he believed it more than she did. They ordered coffee, her treat this time, though her wallet grown and settled into the same easy rhythm. She told him about the diner's latest drama, a cook who'd burned an entire batch of pancakes while flirting with a customer. He laughed, then shared how Mia had staged a dinosaur wedding in their living room, complete with a toy T-Rex as the groom. "She made me officiate," he said, grinning. "I had to say I now pronounce it Dino and Dino with a straight face." Lily laughed, the sound surprising her. She hadn't laughed like that in months. As the conversation flowed, she found herself opening up more about the community college art class she'd taken before dropping out to pay rent, about the gallery show she dreamed of having one day. Ethan didn't just nod along, he asked questions, wanted to know what kind of art she loved, what she'd draw if money and time weren't barriers. "Portraits," she said, "people's faces, their stories. There's something honest in the lines of a face, you know." He nodded, his eyes lingering on her. "I get that. You see people, really see them." The cafe copyright filled with the lunch crowd, but their corner felt like its own world. When Ethan reached for her hand across the table, his touch was gentle, his fingers warm against hers. "You're not just a waitress, Lily," he said, his voice low, serious. "You're an artist, and I want to know every part of you." Her heart pounded, not from fear but from possibility. For so long, she'd seen herself as her struggle, as a bills, exhaustion, a life on pause. But Ethan's words, his belief, cracked something open inside her. Over the next few weeks, they met whenever their schedules allowed, at coffee shops, park benches, once at a diner where Lily introduced him to her favorite greasy spoon burger. Each time, Ethan showed up fully present, no phone buzzing, no rush to leave. He brought small gifts, a pack of colored pencils, a museum postcard with a note saying, "This made me think of you." Lily, hesitant at first, started bringing him sketches, a quick doodle of Mia's dinosaur wedding, a portrait of him laughing. He kept every one, tucking them into his briefcase like treasures. One evening, Ethan invited her to his house for dinner. "Nothing fancy," he warned. "Mia's requested pizza, and I'm terrible at cooking." Lily arrived at his sleek but cozy home, her nerves jangling. Mia answered the door, a whirlwind of glitter and pigtails, dragging Lily inside to show off her art studio, a corner of the living room covered in paint splatters. Ethan watched from the kitchen, his smile soft, as Lily sat cross-legged with Mia, drawing cartoon dinosaurs. "You're good with her," he said later, as Mia slept upstairs and they shared a glass of wine on the couch. "She doesn't warm up to everyone." Lily blushed, unsure how to respond. "She's amazing." "Like her dad." The words slipped out, and she froze, but Ethan just grinned, leaning closer. When he kissed her, it was slow, deliberate, like he'd been waiting for the moment. Her doubts of the gap in their worlds, the fear she wasn't enough, melted under his touch. Months later, Lily stood in a small gallery downtown, her hands trembling as she adjusted a frame. Her first show, a collection of portraits of diners, strangers, Mia's bright eyes, Ethan's crooked smile. He'd helped make it happen, not with money but with encouragement, connecting her to a friend who owned the space. The room buzzed with people, her sketches glowing under soft lights. Ethan stood by her side, his hand brushing hers, his pride evident in every glance. "You did this," he whispered. "All you." Lily looked at him, then at the crowd admiring her work. She'd spent so long believing she was defined by what she lacked: the money, time, opportunity. But here, in this moment, she saw herself as Ethan did, an artist, a dreamer, someone worthy of love. And as she squeezed his hand, she knew this was only the beginning of their story.